good morning from Serbia. In today's video I am going to take you from Old Belgrade, which is where I currently am, across the Sava River and the bridge behind me to a place called New Belgrade, and then from there we'll head up towards Zemun, which is a trendy neighbourhood, I'm told, on the banks of the Danube River. So we'll take a look around that. But before we get started on that journey, I wanted to stop by and show you this monument behind me. It was erected in 1961 to represent the non-aligned countries movement. So to say, the countries that either did not fall into the Eastern Bloc or the Western Bloc during the Cold War. The first conference of the non-aligned countries was held here in Belgrade, and the delegates, when they landed at the airport, had to cross the bridge and pass this statue on the way to the conference. It is a 27-metre tall pillar, and it was restored in 1989. And with that, I think we are going to get on our way. One thing I forgot to bring with me on this trip is my DEET spray for mosquitoes. The combination of the Danube and the Sava, the warm temperatures and hanging around it late at night when the sun is setting has meant that I have suffered quite a few bites from the pesky little midgets. So I've got a couple on my neck, I had one on my arm, and take a look at this. I'm not sure if you can see this on the camera, but there's two on my leg there, two on my leg there, and we've got another one. Look at that, that's a fresh one. Pesky little blighters. In any event, check out these amazing views as I'm crossing the river here. You can see up there is Old Belgrade that we're leaving behind. There's the cathedral up there on the hill and the Sava River in the foreground. Walking alongside the Sava now, and this looks like the area where you find the party scene. So Belgrade is very famous for having an electric nightlife, and I think a lot of these floating barges down here along the water is where you'll find the discos and nightclubs, even some hotels and hostels. Although if you're thinking of coming, I would not recommend this one. Apparently it sunk a few years back. The investigation afterwards found that it was over capacity. I guess at some point it will be dismantled and taken away, but for now it's quite the spectacle from this side of the river, but also from up on the fortress. If you're up there, you can see it quite clearly as you look across the river. A landmark of Belgrade, but probably not one that the city wants to recognise. This is one of Belgrade's largest open spaces and parks. It is on the confluence where you'll find the river Sava on my left and the Danube behind me. It was opened by former Yugoslav leader Tito himself when he came here to plant trees on the 7th of September 1961. It's officially called the Friendship Park. It's very quiet, and behind me is perhaps the most notable memorial here, the Eternal Flame. Erected on the 12th of June 2000, it was unveiled to commemorate the first anniversary of the end to NATO bombing, which had lasted for 78 days against the regime of Slobodan Milosevic. Shortly afterwards it was damaged during protests against Milosevic, but it was renovated and reopened in 2019. The monument is dedicated to the memory of the civilians and military personnel that were killed during the bombings. I'm now walking through an area called Novi Beograd, which translates into English as New Belgrade. We'll come back to that in just a moment, but for now the building behind me is called the Palace of Serbia. It was originally opened in 1959 when it was called the Palace of the Federation under the former Yugoslavia. These days it is still used as a government office, as I just found out because I was filming a lot closer to it, this same clip actually, and two fairly decent policemen came out and said, you can't film the building on our property. So I asked them if I could come over here and film it, and they said that I could. Unfortunately though, I had to delete the previous take. Inside are the offices of the current government, where they go about their day-to-day work, up to and including members of the Serbian cabinet. Now it probably seems really hard to believe, but before the 1940s, New Belgrade was just an area of meadows and swamps, sparsely populated, a few buildings, but not much more. In fact, when I was in Belgrade Fortress the other day, there are some photographs on display that people took in the 1920s and 1930s of them swimming on the beaches where these days those party boats are moored. It shows a relatively empty area, and it's incredible to think what it has become in a relatively short space of time. It was in 1948 that the Yugoslav government agreed that work could begin on a new part of the city. These days there are tall residential towers, business complexes, long straight boulevards, towering hotels. The architecture, especially from the buildings built in the 1940s and 1950s, is very blocky, very communist or socialist style buildings. There are even some examples of brutalist architecture, which you either love or hate, and I've got to say, I am a fan of it. A really great example of that is the Genex building, officially called the Western City Gate, which is two tall buildings with this spaceship-like tower in the middle. I honestly couldn't help but to be in awe of this building. It's absolutely unlike anything I've encountered before, soaring dramatically into the New Belgrade skyline. As said, this is the Western City Gate, an architectural marvel featuring two tower blocks linked by a two-story bridge. Perched above them is what looks like a flying saucer, which turns out to be a revolving restaurant, though its turning mechanism has never been operational. Built in 1979 in the distinct Brutalist style, you might notice that the towers aren't quite symmetrical in height. The taller one houses residences, whilst the shorter was intended for office space but currently sits vacant. If you count the restaurant, this truly unusual structure reaches almost 140 meters. I'd say the vision of a grand and triumphant gateway to New Belgrade was certainly achieved with this one. Times are changing though, and it is not uncommon now to see the big, more modern looking glass and steel structures. However, there is definitely a place in my heart for the older buildings around here. Case in point, across the road there, the Hotel Yugoslavia. And if you're a fan of Bald and Bankrupt here on YouTube, then you're likely familiar with this hotel. This is the one that he stayed at, caught COVID, and very nearly died. He did though make a full recovery, happy ending, and is still making videos to this day. What a wonderful building, the Hotel Yugoslavia. They do not build them like this anymore. Right, we are very close to our final destination in Serbia, and something completely different from all this brutalism and concrete. Join me in the next video when we will be exploring the Zemun district. Hopefully, I will see you there.